There comes a moment in life, often after 60, when the questions we ask begin to change. We no longer wonder, what can I gain, but instead, what have I truly understood? In today's video, we will explore something deeply sacred, not only the Four Noble Truths as the Buddha taught, but how they unfold through the lens of old age. How suffering changes shape with time. How attachment becomes subtler, and so does freedom. And how this later chapter of life may be the very beginning of something far more beautiful than youth ever offered, awakening. This is not a video for passive watching. This is a reflection, a journey into the heart of what it means to age with grace, to live with presence, and to meet death not with fear, but with peace. So stay with me. Watch until the end. Each section holds insight, not just to think about, but to live. If something touches you along the way, let me know in the comments. And if this path speaks to your soul, consider subscribing to the channel. Because what we're building here is not just a space for content, but a sanctuary for the mindful aging heart. Let us begin, gently, honestly, and with open eyes. Old Age and the Four Noble Truths. Reflections from the quiet side of life. There comes a time, perhaps after 60, when the noise of life begins to fade. The world, once so loud with ambition, comparison, and striving, slowly gives way to a deeper kind of silence. In this silence, some of us finally ask, not what do I still want from life, but rather, what is life trying to teach me now? The Buddha, more than 2,500 years ago, already knew what we would feel. He saw clearly that life, no matter how full, will always contain suffering. But more than that, he showed us how to relate to this suffering in a way that frees us, rather than binds us. He called it the Four Noble Truths. Let us walk through them, slowly, gently, through the lens of old age. 1. Dukkha, the truth of suffering. People often associate dukkha with pain or hardship, but it's subtler than that. Dukkha is the feeling of imbalance, of things not quite fitting the way we hoped. And in old age, this imbalance becomes unavoidably visible. The joints ache in the morning. The eyes grow dim. People we once loved dearly may no longer be with us. Or worse, they are there, but do not have time for us. Memory fades, and with it, a sense of identity. Even the familiar home may no longer feel like it belongs to us. These are not failures. They are the unfolding of a natural law. But when we resist this unfolding, when we believe we should still be as we once were, the pain deepens. The Buddha didn't offer a cure for aging. What he offered was a way to suffer less by seeing more clearly. 2. Samudaya, the cause of suffering. It is not aging itself that causes suffering, but the mind's refusal to accept it. We cling to our youth, not just our bodies, but the identity we built over decades, the parent, the leader, the achiever, the one who was needed. After 60, many of these roles dissolve. But the ego resists this dissolution. It whispers, you must still be relevant. You must still be someone. And in that grasping, we suffer. Aging is like autumn. The leaves fall not because the tree is sick, but because the season is changing. But imagine if the tree tried to hold on to every leaf. That is what many of us do with our identities, our memories, our roles, even our regrets. The Buddha taught that craving, tan, lies at the root of our suffering, and that includes the craving to remain who we once were. When we cling to what was, we miss the beauty of what is. 3. Nirodha, the cessation of suffering. Now here is where the Dharma becomes truly transformative. If we deeply see the impermanence of all things, not just as a concept, but as a lived reality, then the tight fist of attachment begins to open. We begin to let go. Let me be clear, cessation is not the end of pain, but the end of our bondage to it. The body may still ache. People may still forget to call. But the heart no longer resists. It no longer insists that things be different. And in that non-resistance, peace arises. This is not a passive giving up. It is an active, conscious surrender, not to fate, but to truth. We stop trying to fix life, and we begin to live it, as it is. In this way, the Buddha's path is not just about release from suffering, it is about returning to the simple, open space of being, where nothing needs to be added or taken away. For Magga, the path that leads to peace. And so, the final truth, there is a way. A path. Not a doctrine, not a commandment, but a set of practices that guide us back to sanity, clarity, and joy. The Noble Eightfold Path is not just for monks or the young. In fact, I often say, this path ripens with age. Why? Because with age, we begin to see what matters. We tire of chasing illusions. We long for quiet. We long for truth. Right view helps us see aging not as failure, but as Dharma unfolding. Right intention reminds us to choose compassion over fear. Right speech, when practiced, teaches us to use words not to control, but to connect. Right action allows us to live simply, ethically, in alignment with our values. Right livelihood may shift in old age, from doing to simply being, offering our presence as a gift. Right effort shows us we don't need to try harder, just more mindfully. Right mindfulness invites us to be present with the changing body, the slower breath, the quieter days. Right concentration becomes a sanctuary, where, even in frailty, the mind touches something vast and timeless. I sometimes wonder, why did the Buddha include aging in the first noble truth, alongside birth, sickness, and death? It's because aging is not merely a physical change. It is the slow invitation into wisdom, the sacred unraveling of all that is false so that what is real may remain. So if you are walking slower these days, forgetful of names, or sitting alone more often than before, know that you are not declining. You are being called inward. To see things as they truly are. To love without holding. To live, fully, before the final breath. This, too, is the path. This, too, is awakening. Aging, one of the four sufferings. In the teachings of the Buddha, he spoke of four universal sufferings that no being can escape: birth, aging, sickness, and death. Now, many people hear that aging is one of the dukkha, one of the sufferings, and immediately think it must be something terrible, something to be feared or avoided. But the Dharma is subtle. It does not condemn aging. It reveals it. Aging is not suffering because we grow old. Aging becomes suffering when we do not understand what it truly is. Aging is not a punishment, it is an invitation. The Buddha did not list aging among the four sufferings to scare us. He included it because it is inescapable, and because it has profound spiritual significance. If we live long enough, we will all walk this road, and so, Buddhism does not offer false hope of escaping it. Instead, it gives us the eyes to walk the path with dignity, clarity, and compassion. For the awakened mind, aging is not a prison. It is a monastery, a place where the unnecessary begins to fall away, and what is essential comes into view. Old age teaches us humility. In youth, we often believed we could conquer life. We planned, built, chased, and held on. But the body has its own Dharma. It does not obey the ego's demands. And in aging, it begins to whisper truths we may have long ignored. You are not in control. You never were. This is not a defeat. This is freedom. When we see clearly that we cannot control the body, that we cannot stop the wrinkles, the forgetfulness, the fatigue, something opens within us. A deeper humility arises. And from this humility grows acceptance, and from acceptance, peace. Old age teaches us to let go. Much of human suffering comes from our habit of holding on to people, roles, memories, identities. But aging does not allow us to keep these things. Children grow up and leave. Our nameplate on the door is replaced by another. Old friends pass away. In this way, old age becomes a gentle, relentless teacher, asking us to release each attachment, one by one. Not as punishment, but as preparation. Not for death, but for liberation. Letting go is not about losing what we love. It is about loving without needing to possess. When we realize this, we begin to touch the true meaning of non-attachment, not as indifference, but as unconditional love. Old age teaches us to love more deeply. There is a tenderness that often arises in those who have aged. Why? Because with age comes the lived experience of impermanence. We know what it means to be left behind, to sit in silence, to feel invisible. And this knowledge does something to the heart, it softens it. We stop taking people for granted. We listen more. We judge less. The old man who smiles at a child in the park is not just being friendly. He remembers being young, remembers losing youth, and understands, without needing to say a word, how fleeting this all is. This kind of love, quiet, unconditional, not demanding, is a rare and beautiful fruit of aging. Like the last leaf of autumn. If youth is like the vibrant green of spring, then old age is the golden hue of autumn, no longer fresh, but somehow more beautiful in its stillness, in its wisdom. The last leaf on the branch is not the weakest. It is the most enduring. And when it finally falls, it does not cry out. It simply lets go, returning to the earth, completing the cycle with grace. This is the Buddhist view of aging, not decay, but ripening. Not the end of vitality, but the fullness of understanding. Not the loss of identity, but the return to what is timeless. So when the Buddha said aging is suffering, he did not mean to shame the aged or glorify youth. He meant that if we resist aging, if we fight the natural flow of life, we will suffer. But if we understand it, welcome it, and let it teach us, then aging becomes not suffering, but awakening. It is not too late. It is never too late. In fact, this very moment, this quiet season of life, may be the most sacred opportunity of all. After 60, what to hold on to, and what to let go. There is a quiet wisdom that comes after 60, a subtle shift in the heart. The things we once chased begin to lose their shimmer. The applause fades. The mirrors matter less. And then comes the question, perhaps whispered at first, but growing louder in the silence of later life. What do I still carry, and what am I ready to lay down? In this sacred season, life invites us to review our inner belongings. Not the clothes in our closets, nor the books on our shelves, but the thoughts, beliefs, and attachments we have kept in the hidden corners of our minds. What to hold on to? 1. Gratitude. Gratitude is not a memory. It is a muscle, one we can still strengthen. Each breath, though slower, is a gift. Each sunrise, even if watched alone, is still golden. We may have lost much, but we are still here, aware, breathing, capable of wonder. The more we give thanks, the more we see that life has never truly stopped giving. 2. Compassion. With age comes the ability to see into the hearts of others. We've cried the same tears, known the same doubts. This understanding makes us gentle. We don't need to prove we're right anymore. We only wish to ease suffering, in ourselves, in others. Compassion becomes our language, even in silence. 3. Presence. There is no need to rush. We have nothing left to chase, and finally, we are free to be where we are. This moment, not the next, is the doorway to peace. And it is always open. To be truly present, even for a few minutes a day, is a form of prayer more powerful than any words. 4. Forgiveness. Not because others always deserve it, but because we deserve peace. To forgive is not to forget, but to stop drinking the poison of resentment. After 60, the heart begins to understand that bitterness is too heavy a thing to carry into the final stretch of the journey. What to let go of? 1. Regret. Yes, we made mistakes. But regret is only helpful if it teaches, not if it torments. We cannot rewrite the past, but we can release its grip on us. Let each regret become a stepping stone, not a shackle. 2. Control. There is so much we can no longer manage: bodies, relationships, outcomes. This is not weakness. This is truth. Trying to control what is uncontrollable only deepens suffering. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means trusting that the river knows the way. 3. The need to be needed. For much of our lives, our worth was measured by what we gave to others, as a parent, a partner, a worker. But now, the gift is our being. We are not less valuable because we are less active. Sometimes, our calm presence is more healing than any advice or task ever could be. 4. The illusion of permanence. After 60, more and more things remind us, everything changes. The sooner we stop grasping at what cannot stay, the sooner we find rest in what has always been here: awareness, still and unshaken. A gentle realization. Letting go is not a loss. It is a lightening. Imagine carrying a heavy bag through the mountains your whole life. Now, as the climb nears its end, life whispers, "You don't have to carry it anymore. Everything you need is already within you." The Buddha never asked us to renounce life. He asked us to release what keeps us from truly living. And so, after 60, we become like the trees in late autumn, letting go of our leaves, not in sorrow, but in wisdom. We do not ask the wind to stop blowing. We simply bow. Not afraid of death, only afraid of not living mindfully. The true student of the Dharma does not fear death. Not because death is easy or insignificant, but because it is natural. It is the closing of one door and the quiet opening of another. The Buddha taught that birth and death are part of the same cycle, inseparable, like day and night. Death is not the enemy. What we should truly fear, if anything, is never having lived with awareness, never having truly arrived in our own life. To live unconsciously is to drift through our days as if they were infinite, as if we ourselves would never fade. It is to eat without tasting, to speak without listening, to breathe without knowing we are breathing. This, the Buddha would say, is the real tragedy, not that we will die one day, but that we may pass through an entire lifetime without ever waking up. After 60, life changes its rhythm. The outer world becomes quieter, and the inner world begins to speak more clearly. We are no longer driven by the noise of ambition or the illusion of control. And in that stillness, we may notice something we once overlooked, the simple miracle of being alive. Each morning becomes sacred. To open our eyes, to feel the breath rising and falling in the body, to see the morning light touching the edge of the window, these are no longer ordinary moments. They are gifts, freely given, waiting only for our presence to be fully received. In this stage of life, mindfulness is no longer just a practice, it becomes a way of being. We do not need grand rituals or philosophies to prepare for death. We only need to come home to this breath, this step, this moment. When the mind is calm, when the heart is open, even the body's decline cannot steal our peace. If we have lived each day with presence, then death does not arrive as a thief. It comes as an old friend, familiar and kind. It does not take anything from us, because we have already learned how to let go. So let us not wait for tomorrow to be mindful. Let us not wait for pain or crisis to begin truly living. Every breath is an invitation. Every moment is a doorway. We need only walk through it, gently, with awareness and love. Not afraid of dying, only afraid of never having truly lived. If you've walked with me through this entire journey, I thank you, not just for your time, but for your presence. We've spoken today not about escaping suffering, but about understanding it. Not about resisting aging, but about opening to its wisdom. And not about fearing death, but about making peace with life. The Buddha never promised a life without pain. What he offered was a path, simple, quiet, and profound, that leads us home to ourselves. So as you leave this video, I ask you, what are you still holding on to? And what are you now ready to let go? If something here helped you see more clearly, breathe more gently, or live more fully, share it below. Let others know they are not walking alone. And if you wish to keep walking this path with me, through aging, awareness, and awakening, subscribe to the channel, and join our growing circle of contemplative souls. Remember, this life, even in its final chapters, is not fading. It is ripening.